Beverly Muhammad, are you with us?
Yes, sir. How are you doing?
Beverly, I'm doing great. This is Peter Flaherty. This is our fifth episode of Why We Do What We Do, the interview series that was created by Marsy's Law for All. Marsy's Law is the victims' rights organization that was created by Dr. Henry Nicholas. Marsy's Law is named after Dr. Nicholas's sister, Marsy Nicholas of California, who was stalked and killed by her ex-boyfriend in 1983 in California. And shortly after her death, 1 week after her death, when Dr. Nicholas and his mom had just visited Marsy's grave, they were in a grocery store and they were confronted by the killer of Dr. Nicholas's sister. And understanding that that is not the way that victims should have to confront the criminal justice system without any kind of notification, Dr. Nicholas made it his lifelong mission to do what he could to make sure that victims' rights were at the forefront of the criminal justice conversation, and that victims would be afforded meaningful and enforceable constitutional rights in our state constitutions. Marsy's Law has had efforts in states all across the country because of great people like Beverly Muhammad who have gotten involved. Beverly Muhammad got involved in our effort, Marsy's Law effort in Georgia. So thank you for joining us, Beverly. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
As you and I have discussed, the whole idea behind why we do what we do is to spotlight the people in the victims' rights movement, many of whom have some incredible personal stories that have inspired them to get involved in this very important work of victims' rights. And Beverly, you are no exception. I want to first talk to you a little bit about your life. You grew up in Georgia. You're a lifelong Georgia resident.
Yes.
And you had, is it 5 children?
I have 5 children and 10 grandchildren.
10 grandchildren.
I have Tafiq from ages from 37 to Tafiq would have been 2013 was 19 before he was already murdered. But if now he was still here, he would be 26.
And we're going to talk a lot about Tafiq in a little bit. And so you said you have 10 grandchildren.
Yes, 10 grandchildren, 9 girls and 1 boy.
Oh, 9 girls.
9 girls and 1 boy.
Wow. So
ages from 9 months to 16.
And before you got involved in the victims' rights world, you had a lot more little children that you cared for.
Yes, I did. I was a preschool teacher for 22 years. Wonderful job. Enjoyed it. Loved the babies. Loved the children.
And you've told me that a lot of those students of yours are now all grown up and they still keep in touch with you.
Yes, they do. Honestly, especially the parents that let me know how well they are doing at particular times. They could reach back out to me. And I sometimes see them in the store if I'm in the neighborhood.
Yeah. Now you are in the Atlanta area, and obviously we should not even have an interview like this without at least recognizing the really tough, challenging times that you're dealing with in Atlanta when it comes to violence. This past weekend has been particularly rough, seeing a little 8-year-old girl murdered.
Yes.
And so our heart goes out to all of you in Georgia and in the Atlanta area, and your mayor's doing a great job. And you just found out recently that your mayor actually has coronavirus.
Corona, right.
Yeah, so we recognize the challenges that you're going through and the impact that it's having on the criminal justice system and the victims' rights world and the survivors and the families of all of these victims. So our heart goes out to all of them, obviously. Now, you talked about your 5 children, and I want to focus for purposes of this interview, obviously, on the baby, as you call him, Tafiq.
Yeah, the baby.
Tell us about Tafiq.
Tafiq was a mama's boy. Tafiq, when he was little, he does a lot of little things, especially going out, like capturing small animals, like squirrels, bringing squirrels inside the house. Said, "Mommy, look what I found." Oh, take it back outside, take it back outside. And he used to sneak down at the middle of the night when he was about 8, 9. And he used to sneak down from upstairs into my bedroom and sleep at the foot of my bed. I wake up the next morning, he's at the foot of my bed, sleep. Um, he's grew up to be a young man that always said he wanted to be a principal and go to school, go off to school to become a principal. And so, unfortunately, that didn't happen, but he was a great child. He loves to go shopping. He was my date. Whenever time I go out to eat, Tafiq was there. Tafiq, where are we going? If it's not a favorite restaurant that he would like to go to, he's not going. But in the meantime, if I, bribe him into going shopping, he'll go shopping with me. And he became a shopaholic as he got older himself. But that was our therapy, to get out the house, to find something to do, to keep, him, protected, like you're protecting your child. So hang out with your mama. So we go, his favorite restaurants was Cheesecake Factory. He loved the tuxedo cheesecake. And that's what he's enjoyed going. He enjoyed going to the Cheesecake Factory. And that's Tafiq. And he was a quiet child. He wasn't very loud, like his mama, loud. But he also loved his nieces and his nephews. He loves to babysit them. He loves to play with children, just like his mama. I always loved kids. Kids always been around me. And that's what he loves to do too, is, play with his nieces and his nephews.
Yeah, you said he was great with kids.
Yes, great with children, great with children.
And you were telling me that everybody in your school, a lot of your colleagues, noticed how great he was with kids too.
Yes, they did. They were saying, "Oh my God, he loved children just like your mama, just like your mama." Love the bad children. They need love. They always need love.
They need a little extra.
Yes, you have to give them extra love.
Yeah, and you said that he was your date. Because
he was always my date for after church on Sunday. If I decided I didn't want to cook on Sunday, we go out to eat. We go to Alexander restaurant. I don't know if anyone knows what Alexander is, but Alexander is it's a nice, elegant restaurant. It's very nice. He likes to go to Alexander restaurant. And then on Friday evenings after work, when I get home, what are we gonna eat tonight? Where you want to go? That's my store. Where do you want to go? And we go where he wanted to go to eat, out to eat. And we was like, what we always trying different restaurants. We never go to the same restaurant. It's something different that we had to try out and see how well that food, tastes. That's what Tafiq like to do. He likes to eat out.
Yeah. So you guys both like to eat and you both like to shop. So
we both like to eat, both like to shop.
You got each other into trouble.
Yeah, I got him in trouble.
So he was the youngest, and so you guys had a special bond because you were telling me that once everybody else had moved out, you guys were the team.
Yes, when everybody else moved out and moved on their own, it was just Tafiq and I. And when it was just Tafiq and I, it's just things that he did that I was into studying, and he was into, I'm going to get the grandkids. I'm going to get Deja. I'm going to get Destiny. I'm going to get Paris. And those are my grandchildren names, some of the grandchildren.
Yeah.
Names. And I want to keep them over the weekend since you're going to be studying. So he loves to have the grandchildren over.
Yeah. So he was a good babysitter.
Yeah, he was a great babysitter. Great babysitter.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Well, and then there's no better babysitter than a grandmother.
Yes, me.
Yeah.
When I want to, yeah. I can give them back.
Yeah, exactly.
I love you.
Yeah. But you love them when you have them.
Yes, I do. I love them when I have them.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. They say a grandmother's a babysitter who watches the kids instead of watching television.
Right.
Now, Tafiq was with you up until April the 20th of 2013. And that was a day that changed your life forever.
Yes, that was the day that changed my life forever. April the 13th, when Tafiq was murdered. And It really changed all of our lives, just not mine, my children's life too. But it also led me in another direction as far as my career.
Mhm.
And my career was to do advocacy work. And after Tafiq's death, I find myself, as a victim, like a lot of victims are now. And you try to figure out a way and a path to go down. And you ask me, I ask God. And at the particular time, I didn't want to do this, but I had no choice but to do this. It was in my heart to do this. It was something that was on me, that was weighing me down like a burden, like a burden weighing you down. You want to do this. So I started doing advocacy work to actually, it helps me to heal as a victim that's been devastated and lost a child, unfortunate to a violent crime. And it left me somewhat lost as far as asking question why. And then once I started working with Marsy Law, volunteer with Marsy Law, and working as a victim advocate, it had helped me to process the loss and how to help victims and to help myself as a victim.
So,
And mhm,
so your work helping others to heal
yes,
actually has helped you to heal.
right.
And you worked at one point, the Georgia Crime Victims Advocacy Council. And you were telling me that you would do everything from going to meetings
Yes.
and speak at support groups for other people who had lost children to violence.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I would go to Thursday night evenings. I would go to the crime victim advocacy and go to their little support group meetings, and I would sit there and share my story and how me coming to the support group meeting has helped me to heal in the process of losing my child. But I knew that, like, explaining to them, it takes time. Everything is a process. There's nothing to speed or recover when you done lost a loved one. And you just take it one day at a time. And it was on a spiritual base. To me, I, tie God into it because the fact, I always use the word, "You never leave me nor forsake me," as a Bible scripture, because the fact, I had to depend on him to help me through the situation, besides going to support group meetings to help me to deal with the loss of my loved one.
And you were telling me that you could really feel that the other families that were grieving really had a connection with you.
Yes.
Connection because you had actually been through it.
Yes.
That's okay. Everyone's dealing with it in the Zoom world, Bev.
Sorry.
That's probably one of your daughters looking for you to watch.
Yes, that's the one in Oregon. She's calling from Oregon. Sorry.
Oh, don't you worry about it. That's one of your jobs as a grandma.
Yes.
So everyone's multitasking these days.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Oh no, everyone's house has become their office. So so you were saying that you would find a special connection, and the grieving families would find a special connection with you, because as much as people would say, I understand, I know what you're going through, unless it was someone who had actually gone through it before, their answer was, you really don't know.
Right. You really don't understand. You really don't know my feelings. You really don't. You sometimes, you listen to victims, they'll say, well, you haven't lost a child. You don't know. And it takes longer. We don't know how long it's going to take for the healing process to kick in. But always, to me, I jot down a lot of things. I did me a journal. I pray a lot. like I said, my faith is there. And, you know, I do what I can to try to stay busy. Like I always, you know, tell the victim, please find something to stay busy, to keep you occupied. Find things that that loved one that they enjoy and you enjoy it after the healing process. But it takes time. It's always a process. It's never a quick fix. It depends all in the individual.
Yeah. And at some point, the person who killed Tafik was apprehended and pled guilty to involuntary manslaughter and received a 3 to 10-year sentence. And something happened with respect to the sentence he was serving that is really the exact opposite of the way the system is supposed to work with respect to notification of victims.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically, in your case, the person who killed your son was being transferred from one prison facility to another and was actually released by mistake. Is that
Yes,
right?
yes, correct.
And how
He
did you actually
and
find out about that?
I found out about that through my daughter, which called me and said, "Mama, is the inmate?" She's called his name. For confidentiality, I won't call his name. But she said, "Is he out?" And I said, "No, he's still locked up." And she said, "No, Mama, I think you need to look into it because of the fact that I saw him on Facebook." I said, "On Facebook? He's not on Facebook." She said, "Oh, yes, he is." So I actually looked into it and I started watching this topic page on Facebook. And I notified the court system and and that was just say in the county of, we just say Atlanta, and not the court system in Atlanta, but Atlanta. We found out through the court system that he was, when I notified them and asked them to look into it, and she looked into it and she stated, "Oh my God, someone dropped the ball." She said, "Yeah." She said, "Oh my God, I got to call you back. I got to call you back." And I said, "Well, he's out." And she said, "Yes, I see. Oh my." She said, "I'm about to get back in contact with you." So I waited for one day, then I waited for 2 days. They finally notified me and said that, yes, and that they're sorry that they let him out by mistake, and that someone just dropped the ball in between that. And so once it took 2 months for them to really actually find him and locate him to get him back in, you know, incarceration. But the court system had not notified me of his release. He was released with, they didn't even know he was released. I had to notify the court system to let them know that he was out.
So this was the exact opposite of the way that the system is supposed to work.
Right.
You were notifying
them that he's out.
And so clearly realizing that there was something wrong with that, when Marsy's Law's effort came to Georgia and you heard about it and what Marsy's Law was all about, you became involved and became very instrumental in helping Marsy's Law get passed in the state of Georgia. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yes, I did. I started working with Marsy Law and volunteering my time and volunteering for, you know, do the press conference, sharing my story, going through the legislation office to the Capitol, talking in front of, you know, oh my God, nervous.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so you testified in front of.
Yes, I testified.
You've never done that before.
Never done that before. And I'm looking up at the ceiling. Oh my God, where am I?
Yeah, that's different than the preschool classroom.
Yes, totally different.
Yeah.
Nervous because you got to talk in front of all these people. Yeah. And that helps me to help, you know, to start working with Marsy Law. That's how I started working with them to try to get this bill passed in the Constitution, because the things that I went through as far as not having notification at that particular time when Tafik was let out, or Tafik suspect was let out prison at that particular time. Really, you know, somewhere it was a disconnect and for the system not to know that this individual is out. And I there's no telling how long has been out, and they did not know. But unfortunately, my daughter was on Facebook, and that's how she found out and informed me that he was out. And I informed them that he's out.
Yeah, and your son Tafiq's memory inspired you. You were telling me, and gave and helped to give you the courage to do things that you never thought you were capable of. Like you said,
Yes.
testifying in front of the legislature, participating in press conferences.
Speaking. Yes, a lot of things. I felt like that's the only thing I can share with anyone, that a lot of things that I'm doing now is not because of me, unfortunately. It's because of Tafiq, and it's because of the faith that I have is in God, as far as trying to help victims like myself. And Tafiq played a big role in, leading me to do the things that I do now, because of the fact that without me losing a child, I would not know how devastating this really actually for victims. And me losing that child, that loved one, now I can say I truly do understand. But it's difficult, but I felt like Moses. I needed courage. I need that courage to stand up and fight for what is right, and to make sure victims have equal rights. And that's by, with Marsy law, it's, being passed in the state of Georgia, to help them to have rights in the court system as well, making sure they get notified in a timely manner, making sure that they're notified when the suspect is released from prison. So this is why I'm doing, working with Marsy law.
Yeah, and you really have done an incredible job. And we've really gotten to know each other, Bev, and
Yes.
You have some of the most incredibly insightful quotes. And one of the things you talked about was when you realized that you wanted to get involved and change the way that victims' rights were viewed and the culture for victims' rights in the state of Georgia, which you said, sometimes, Peter, you have to understand, when a situation isn't going to change, you need to change the situation.
Right.
And that's exactly what you did.
Yes. Yeah. When it's not going to change, when you can't change, you have to be the person that change the inside of what's going on the outside. Things that you cannot have control over, but if you can control what's going on the inside of you or what your situation, you have to make that change, because only you can do that.
Yeah. And well, now Marsy's Law, thanks to you and your efforts and the efforts of everyone involved in that state campaign. And as you saw firsthand, the Marsy's Law campaign has a lot of different facets, and it's the definition of a team effort. You were a major part of that, and now it is enshrined in the state constitution in Georgia. And you're still involved as a member of the Marsy's Law for Georgia Advisory Board, and still working with victims and the victims' rights, victims advocate capacity. And now with, like we were just talking about, the coronavirus challenges, the coronavirus has not spared really any part of life, including the criminal justice system and victims' rights. And recently, you actually wrote a letter to the Chief Justice of the Georgia State Supreme Court, gently reminding the Chief Justice that victims' rights are essential when contemplation of reopening the court system was happening.
Yes, I wrote a letter, stating that, how to function during this coronavirus. And we know that plays a key role now, also making sure that these victims get notified. But it is written in the Constitution, Section 1 of the Constitution article. It's the men guarantee that victims, get the rights to be heard and proceeding involving the release and plea and sentencing of the accused, and the rights upon request to be reasonable and accurate, and to a timely notice such as proceeding. Also, when I talk about that, I'll, more so the court system need to make sure that, once they open, that I believe that is the central crime for the, for the crime victims to be received their full rights up under the Marsy law. And that's what I believe in a healthy, safe manner, because the fact that's the only way that with the COVID-19, but we have to make sure that these victims are notified in a timely manner so they won't, be living in fear. Because unfortunately, this during the COVID-19, there was a lot of victims that were living with the abuser, didn't have anywhere to go. And when you feel like there's no one you can go to for help, that's, I'm staying here, but I have no other choice but to accept what is going on, because in fact, I have nowhere else to go. That also making sure that, that we try to do what we can to assist the victims out here, to make sure they're notified and to see if there's any other things that we can offer as, to the victims out here.
And you're doing that right now in Atlanta, and you're helping domestic abuse victims and survivors, which you've been doing for a while. And you've talked to me about how challenging that has become because of the quarantine situation.
Right.
And has it been hard to find places?
Yes, it's been difficult to find shelters because a lot of shelters was closed and they only accept so many individuals in because of social distance. And not only that, it was because of the fact that they was not accepting new victims or people in because of the fact of the COVID-19. It was difficult to try to find somewhere to place them. The only solution I can come up with was, could you go move in with a family member? Could you move in with your sister or uncle or brother, auntie, grandmama, someone else besides the shelter? Right now, the shelters they have limitation. They were accepting so many victims at a time, and a lot of shelter was closed due to the COVID. And once the ones they already had in, the ones that want to go to stay in, they was not taking new victims to come in to shelter.
Yeah, so your work, as challenging as it always is, has really become particularly challenging over the last several months.
Yes.
Well, I want to thank you, Beverly. It's been such a treat getting to know you and all of the work you've done for Marsy's Law over the last several years and continue to do, as recently as getting the courage to write to the Chief Justice of the state.
Yes, I had to get courage.
Yeah, well, preschool teacher and a mom and a grandma and a champion for victims' rights, you are really leaving quite a mark on Atlanta and on Georgia and really on the world. And we thank you so much for continuing to do all the work that you do, and for Marsy's Law as well. And, they have we're talking a lot about your being a mom and a grandma and your special relationship, which you shared with us for a little bit today with Tafiq. There's a saying that mothers hold their children's tiny hands for just a short while, but they hold their hearts forever.
Forever. And
you clearly have Tafiq's heart in your heart, and it's what drives you and what helps everybody else as a result. So thank you so much, Beverly, and thanks for joining and sharing with us today.
Thank you.
All right, have a great day.
You too. Bye.